program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, June 5th, 2026. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. Starting off with the weather, today it says partly sunny and breezy with a high of 82 and a low of 67. For tomorrow, a shower and thunderstorm with a high of 72 and a low of 62. Clouds yielding to sun on Sunday with a high of 77 and a low of 54. And then we have a few days of mostly sunny and very warm, partly sunny, highs in the low to mid 80s and lows in the lower to mid 60s. And then Thursday, a morning thunderstorm or two with a high of 81 and a low of 66. We had no precipitation yesterday. We have 20 and 87 hundredths inches of precipitation year to date. That's about 5 inches above normal, not quite 5 inches. It's starting to taper off from that big lead we had because it's been dry this past week pretty much.
Yeah.
So
easier cutting the grass.
I did some of that yesterday, in fact, and I'm going to finish today. High yesterday 77 and the low is 52. That's pretty close to average. The record high was 93 in 1919 and the record low 40 in 1965. The sun rose today at 5:38, there we go, and will set tonight at 8:50. Nationally, Lake Havasu City, Arizona had the high temperature yesterday of 104 and the low still every once in a while this time of year we have a low that's a low that's below freezing still. Leadville, Colorado, that's up in the Rockies between Breckenridge and Aspen.
They've been getting snow out that way.
They do, even this late. Now, the trivia question today, as a statistics teacher, I think I got this one. What is lightning's favorite target? I'm thinking lightning likes a ground, so it's going to go for a tree. And, outside of tall buildings, cities with lots of tall buildings, the tree is going to be the most frequently found thing. So throughout the nation, or throughout the world, I suppose, trees are the favorite target.
And where do people always run when it's going to rain? To the closest tree.
Not me.
It's not the smartest thing, but I would not advise it.
I look at the forecasts and stay indoors, away from the plumbing.
Yep.
Well, that's the weather. What's the front page look like?
Well, lawmakers passed one-year hold-on permits for new data centers, and this is from Robert Gavin of the Albany Bureau Chief. A bill to impose a one-year moratorium on the development of data centers in New York State passed State Assembly and was expected to pass the State Senate later Thursday as lawmakers prepared to finish the 2026 legislative session. Good news to me. They want to build one in my neighborhood. The proposed Responsible Data Center Development Act would halt the issuance of new permits for data centers for 1 year, while requiring the State Department of Environmental Conservation to study their impact and render a report published on the agency's website. It would require the data centers, which power artificial intelligence, to provide benefits to their host communities and prevent negative impacts on local waters. Data centers that have already received a permit are allowed to move forward. The legislation also exempts data centers at research facilities such as the University at Buffalo's Empire AI Data Center. The bill was inspired by the rapid increase of data centers across the country, which include proposals for a number of data centers in western New York. They include the Stream Data Center's plans to build a 500-megawatt data center complex in the Science, Technology, and Advanced Manufacturing Park in the town of Alabama, in Genesee County, a proposed 495,000 square foot AI data center at the former Tonawanda Coke factory in the town of Tonawanda, which is now paused. I can walk there from my house. Not happy. Right on the Niagara River. And at the former Sugar Hill Golf Course in the town of Portland in Chautauqua County. The sponsors of the bill said data centers have driven up electricity costs, strained the electric grid, and increased water consumption and put pressure on the infrastructure of local utilities. Okay, where am I? The data centers are presenting a whole new series of challenges, Assemblymember Dee Dee Barrett, a Hudson Valley Democrat, who is sponsoring the bill with Senator Kristen Gonzalez, a Democrat who represents parts of Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens. These things that we should be looking at, maybe we should have done it sooner, but this is why we're doing it. The bill passed Assembly by an unofficial vote of 102 to 39. The Senate was expected to follow suit at some point in the final hours of the session leading into wee hours of Friday this morning. It remains unclear whether Governor Kathy Hochul will agree to the moratorium. Several Republicans said the bill was hostile to business, blocked job creation, and would drive data centers to competing states such as Virginia. I think this legislation is frankly irresponsible and an invasion of local control, said Assemblymember Stephen Hawley, a Republican from Batavia, whose district includes the Stamp site. He said it was a fallacy to believe the state knew more than local governments about data centers. This state's on a collision course with progress, said Angelo Morinello, a Republican from Niagara Falls. Earlier Thursday, advocates supporting the bill urged lawmakers to pass it, including Bridge Rauch of the Clean Air Coalition of Western New York. Our communities in our state need time to develop and pass local and state regulations, Rauch said. Cheryl Cordes of Alabama, who lives near the Stamp site, said, "I'm here to beg Kathy Hochul, sign this moratorium. Please don't make us rely on our local officials who seem to be deaf, dumb, and mute when it comes to what data centers are going to do to our local community." She noted that the Genesee County Economic Development Center has strongly backed the project and opposed the bill. Another issue for opponents of the data centers is the lucrative tax breaks that many request and receive. For example, the developer of the $19.5 billion data center at the Stamp site is seeking $1.4 billion in tax incentives. Now, Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz is insisting that no data centers will receive tax breaks from the Erie County Industrial Development Agency while he remains in office. It is a position that would apply to the $2 billion AI center proposed for the former Tonawanda Coke site in the town of Tonawanda. The town doesn't have its own IDA, so requests for subsidies for projects in a town go to the Erie County IDA Board. Most of these projects are being supported by mega millionaires or billionaires, including crypto billionaires, AI billionaires. Or are data centers going to be built for Facebook and Google? They don't need tax breaks, Poloncarz told reporters following an unrelated event Thursday afternoon. Really? Poloncarz said the Tonawanda Coke developer hasn't formally requested a package of tax incentives. A spokesperson for the developer, Riverview Innovation and Technology Campus, declined comment on Poloncarz's remarks. Poloncarz, who has 18 months left in his term as county executive, sits on the IDA board. He was asked how he could ensure his prohibition on data center tax breaks if he has just one vote on the agency board. Poloncarz said his office controls a majority of board appointments. "I believe there will be no tax breaks that will be offered to data centers," he said, based on conversations he's had with other board members. There may be a couple board members who support it, but the IDA board is primarily controlled by Erie County through the county executive's office. Hochul said Wednesday that much more should be done to ensure that communities are benefiting enormously from this, and that it is not a drain on area and power sources, adding, "I will look at this one-year moratorium in the context of knowing that the status quo can't continue, that much more needs to be done to derive benefits if they are in the state of New York." So we'll see what happens there.
Well, just another area of controversy in the data center arena. In North Tonawanda, the big fuss is about the Bitcoin processing plants that use so many computers that generate so much heat. They have to have a huge array of fans to cool them, and the fans make a lot of noise.
I've heard that from a lot of people who live there, and they claim that the noise is unreal.
Yeah, and they don't get into that in this article, so I'm not sure how much the fuss is about the computers that have to be involved in data centers, but we'll see how this all goes. Meanwhile, a related article from Stephen Watson and Mackenzie Schumer, a couple of news staff reporters. The official review of a $2 billion AI data center eyed for the old Tonawanda Coke plant is on hold, but pushback to the project is very much active. A dramatic example came Wednesday evening, just hours after the review pause became public. That's when about 250 people packed a Kenmore Tonawanda Municipal Building to show their fervent opposition to the data center proposal. During a 2-hour-long town planning board meeting, dozens of speakers detailed their concerns about the plan put forth by Riverview Innovation and Technology Campus at the 120-acre property along River Road. Developers John Williams and John Jensen of Ontario Specialty Contracting had proposed building a 495,000 square foot data center there, a structure more than 2.5 times the size of a standard Walmart supercenter. If you truly cared about the residents of Tonawanda and the surrounding areas, you would prevent this from being considered any further, said Michaelis Ortino, a local resident who created an online petition against the data center that had amassed more than 7,000 signatures as of yesterday morning. Now, today it's very apparent that this town does not want this. And with everyone behind me, it makes me proud to say that I'm from Tonawanda because it shows that everyone cares. The data center is the first of 3 phases of development at the Tonawanda Coke site. The proposal for a data center at 3875 River Road, which appeared to be Williams' intent since his OSC bought the contaminated property in 2019 for $1, has only recently caused uproar in the community. Data center developments have made news headlines around the world over the past year due to their reported impacts on water supplies, noise pollution, and energy use. Until they can answer my questions about how this electricity is going to work and how it's going to affect the residents and business in the town of Tonawanda, and I'm going to continue to have concerns about this, Tonawanda Supervisor John Flynn said in an interview before the meeting. In March, Riverview Innovation and Technology Campus submitted its 440-page master zoning permit application and environmental assessment form for the data center to the Town Planning Board. The filing states the project would use 300 megawatts of energy, most presumably dedicated to the data center, or enough electricity to power about 250,000 homes. The planning board was set to begin its review of the proposal Wednesday. However, hours before the meeting, the developer asked the board to pause the process because it was still waiting for specifics on the availability of electricity required to power the data center and on any needed upgrades to the site's infrastructure. Riverview Innovation and Technology Campus, or RITC, said in a statement it planned to resume its quest for project approval once it receives additional information from the New York Independent System Operator, which oversees the state's electric grid, and from National Grid. At this time, we have every intention to continue our proposed development as we continue and complete the massive environmental cleanup effort we have been leading at the site for the past several years, RITC said. Others left the site for dead. We have been steadfast and transparent in our vision and commitment to resurrect it. NYISO told the Buffalo News that no system impact study on the RITC power request is available. However, in an email to town planners, Jensen said NYISO had provided preliminary results of the system impact study to members of the data center development team. While it does indicate that the load we have requested can be serviced with existing generating capacity, it further represented that the load may potentially exacerbate or cause additional thermal and voltage overloads on the existing transmission network, Jensen wrote, according to a copy of the results obtained by the News. As a result, upgrades will be required prior to delivering energy to the site. The move also comes as the state legislature weighs a 1-year moratorium on data center projects in New York, legislation that Governor Hochul would need to approve for it to become law. This temporary ban could affect several proposed data centers in the area, including one eyed for a prime parcel in Niagara Falls. New York City billionaire Howard Milstein's Niagara Falls redevelopment is pursuing a proposed $1.5 billion Niagara Digital Campus, which got a boost after NFR and the city reached a court-mediated agreement to settle years of bitterness and litigation. As part of the agreement, which was approved Wednesday night by the City Council, 43 acres of NFR-owned land received a special zoning designation that would allow for high-energy uses, such as a data center, though the project is subject to extensive additional review, Niagara Falls Mayor Robert Ristino said. Last night wasn't the approval of a data center, he said yesterday. Chris Murawski, executive director of the Clean Air Coalition of Western New York, told the News his organization is pushing for the Tonawanda Coke site to be redeveloped into a hub for renewable energy. The property could house solar panels generating at least 13 megawatts of electricity, or the equivalent of about 2,344 homes, 7% of the housing stock in the town of Tonawanda, according to a nationwide study conducted by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. We can't fully go back and make full restitution on the harms that were done by Tonawanda Coke, but we think that there could be a way to move forward in a sustainable way, Murawski said. We do need to generate electricity. We do need to transition off fossil fuels, and the data center would be going in the opposite direction. Williams Ontario Specialty Contracting has spent more than 5 years at an expected cost of more than $100 million cleaning up the site where, for a century, coal was converted into coke in a process that produced extensive pollution. Those costs could be offset, however, through taxpayer-funded credits under the state's Brownfield Cleanup Program. Environmental issues were a particular sticking point for residents who said they lived in the area when Tonawanda Coke was pumping out hundreds of tons of poisonous benzene-laden gas into the atmosphere for decades. Why re-traumatize a community that has suffered so much? Cadence Agar asked during the meeting. This fills the pockets of all responsible for this project, but does nothing to fill the pockets of the working class in our community.
Yeah. We're here to read the paper because I could say a lot. I live up there.
This is going to be an ongoing story. Yeah, I grew up in that area.
That's a mess.
Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our first quarter hour of programming. We were listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and the time is 17 minutes past the hour. Time to turn to the opinion page.
Well,
from the local writers, moving up. Hard work and kindness make a difference as schools improve and a vet gets a home. Inspiration is the word of the day as 2 Buffalo Public Schools climb the achievement ladder. A disabled veteran finds a fitting place to call home thanks to nonprofit and community help. And for readers who might have missed this story, an Albion-based grandmotherly figure spreads warmth and positivity through social media. The News' Ben Tsujimoto reported on achievements at Houghton Academy, an elementary school on Clinton Street that calls itself the Houghton Academy Lions. Kaisertown School, which enrolls students in pre-kindergarten through 8th grade, is one of 2 that have proved their accountability standing with the New York State Education Department. Led by Principal Kevin A. Garcia, the school bounded from targeted support and improvement, that's called TSI, to the top accountability tier, local support and improvement. It's called LSI. International School 45 was the only other Buffalo school to improve its standing, and as Tsuchimoto reported, Jennifer Golias, and by overhauling its disciplinary approach, attending to immunizations for newcomers, and bolstering its achievement in math. Houghton, at 450 students, less than half the size of School 45, employed a variety of approaches to show a significant academic achievement in English and math. Garcia highlighted the work of 2 teachers whose classes performed exceptionally well on state assessments, Kelly Smith, who teaches 6th grade English and Social Studies, and Megan Silkowski, a 6th grade math and science teacher. From doubling down on testing to providing added computer support to English language learners, Houghton is working hard to improve and raise expectations among the students and the broader community. Garcia envisions more success for Houghton Academy, stating, "It just makes it hungry, makes us hungry. We're lions. We like to eat.
Well, after good to hear some good things, and now for more good things. This is a real heartwarmer. Thanks to an outpouring of community support and one of our nation's veterans, Army Specialist Nathan Kalwicki of West Falls, found a new home. Kalwicki had been deployed in Afghanistan where he was severely injured by gunshots. His right leg had to be amputated. Some 15 years later, as Samantha Chrisman wrote for The Bright Side, Kalwicki received an offer of a service dog, but he and his wife Veronica were living in a 700-square-foot apartment on the second floor. Not an ideal situation for a service dog or a wounded war veteran. Kalwicki declined the offer for a dog. The phone rang again, and this time the caller wanted to know if he wanted a mortgage-free house from a soldier's journey home. A nonprofit organization for serving disabled vets. Excuse me while I pick up my tissue to wipe my eyes. But Kalwicki said yes, and then the community stepped up to offer assistance, including more than 100 volunteers, many of them firefighters. None were acquainted with Kalwicki. They just wanted to help. People traveled from 17 states, spending their vacation time building Kalwicki a fully adapted West Falls home. To Kalwicki, thank you for your service. Okay. And now the Nana is in. Diane Schiffer may wear vintage dresses and live in a 1930s cottage, but she knows how to use her smartphone. Schiffer's videos offer soothing grandmotherly advice to reach a global audience of millions. As Chrisman reported, her first video, an accidental time-lapse showing her taking her curlers, went viral by accident. But the continually popularity of Schiffer's warm, compassionate presence is no accident. The Albion resident and mother of 5 is a hit with teenagers and young adults who find an important human connection with the 69-year-old. The proof is in the numbers. More than 2 million followers across social media platforms. Schiffer goes by Your Chubby Vintage Nana on TikTok and can also be found on YouTube and Instagram. It's not surprising that her fans love sayings like this: I have all the time in the world for you. Well, those are great, heartwarming stories after some of the other things that are making the news.
Well, the news finds some heartwarming stuff going on in our community, and this page on Fridays likes to highlight that stuff. So it's
and Don can attest. I just wiped my eyes again.
nice to be indeed nice to be able to read that, though.
Yeah, it's a nice, heartwarming thing.
Well, moving on to something a little less heartwarming, I'm afraid, for local
sadly.
hockey fans. The political cartoons today from Adam Ziglis has Lindy Ruff standing at a podium with the Sabres logo on the front, and it looks like he's holding something that's invisible, but what is instead is shows one of these penguin faces, as it were, has snatched away the Coach of the Year trophy. And the character is obviously representing John Rooney, the coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, because it's holding it's wearing a Lightning jersey. We'll have more on that one later, but the caption is "Stealing His Thunder."
Yeah.
And meanwhile, on the facing page, Tom Stiglitz, a familiar face or name from the Creator Syndicate, has a cartoon picture of Scott Pelley. From the 60 Minutes news program on CBS on Sunday evenings, the person most responsible for Scott Pelley losing his job at CBS News, and it shows a picture of Scott Pelley. Well, that says something about Tom Stiglitz's political bias, and I'm going to comment no further on that.
Yeah, I don't even know who these people are, and I thank God I don't watch TV sometimes.
Oh.
I don't even have one. Shock to some people. Well, from Clarence Page. Dems ruminate over an autopsy when they should be making hay. Okay. It seemed to take forever, but on Thursday, the Democratic National Committee finally released their autopsy of their ill-fated 2024 presidential campaign. It's bitter medicine, my Dem friends, but as Mama used to say, take a spoonful, it'll do you good. As midterm elections loom and as the party girds its loins for what will be a millennial battle to retake the White House, the Democrats would do well to recall the great humorist Will Rogers' assessment of their 1924 convention, which is widely remembered as the longest and wildest in the nation's history. I wasn't around then. Now I'm going to want to look that up. Although the Democrats that year initially saw opportunity in the division and corruption plaguing incumbent President Calvin Coolidge's Republican Party, they soon realized that their own coalition was even more divided. After 16 days and 103 ballots for the presidential nomination, good grief, the delegates in New York City's Madison Square Garden settled on John W. Davis, a conservative lawyer and a congressman from West Virginia, a supposed compromise candidate, although he reportedly satisfied almost no one. After the chaotic convention, the Democrats lost badly to Coolidge in the 1924 presidential election under the Republican slogan, Coolidge or Chaos. Democrats never agree on anything. That's why they're Democrats, Rogers observed. If they agree with each other, they'd be Republicans.
Well, now we don't have to look that up.
Now we don't have to look that up.
Well, that sounds familiar in these times, as most congressional Republicans carefully march in lockstep with Trump, even after his, and I do mean his, Justice Department and his IRS concocted a taxpayer-financed $1.776 billion slush fund that Trump will control.
Yeah.
Although the details are not crystal clear, the fund's main function appears to be the compensation of the January 6th rioters, all of whom Trump already has pardoned. This patent corruption does rankle some Republicans. Yet, given Trump's recent displays of autocratic power within the party, by sponsoring the primary defeats of GOP stalwarts such as Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Senator John Cornyn of Texas, few congressional Republicans will utter anything resembling a discouraging word about the president's abuses of office. This, as we approach the midterms, provides a wealth of material for Democrats to highlight, especially as Trump's approval ratings sink on traditional Republican strong suits such as the economy and foreign policy. I don't think about Americans' financial situation, the president told reporters when commenting on his shockingly expensive own goal war with Iran. Not even a little bit. Meanwhile, he is spending lavishly on a White House ballroom/bunker and proposing a triumphal arch while ordinary families struggle to afford health insurance and pay their bills. He's making himself, his children, and his cronies rich. With Republican lawmakers stuck on Trump's plantation, afraid to show their faces to voters in their districts, this seems like an ideal time for Democrats to make hay. Yet, the thing about the Democrats is that first they have to an embarrassing public fight among themselves. Which brings us to the autopsy, or after-action report of the party's shambolic loss in the 2024 presidential election. After months of hand-wringing, Democratic National Committee Chair Ken Martin released the document, bizarrely in an incomplete draft form, marked up with comments in red type such as claim contradicts public reporting and no sourcing provided. The markup comments read less like editorial interventions and more like dismissals of a hostile brief. Martin said the report had been withheld because it was shoddily done. Having read an earlier version, I agree up to a point, although many of the cited problems appear painfully obvious. Among them, party leaders underestimated the perils of President Joe Biden's decision to run for a second term at age 81, despite widespread concerns about his frailty. His sudden departure after a faltering debate performance led to his quick replacement by Vice President Kamala Harris, whom the Biden White House did not position or prepare in a way that would enable her to lead a winning campaign, according to the report. Among other problems, her campaign, according to the autopsy, did not foresee or prepare for such dirty pool as the attacks that came against her previous support for taxpayer-funded gender-affirming surgeries for prison inmates.
Yes, as an old Chicago motto goes, politics ain't beanbags. Rather than delve into the autopsy's controversy, I'll simply relate a few salient quotations. Going negative works, especially if voters know you. The male voter problem is solvable. Male voters, especially those of color, responded to direct engagement, and that wasn't achieved in 2024. Harris wrote off rural America, assuming urban/suburban margins would compensate. They didn't. Harris struggled with definition beyond not Trump. Irregular voters weren't feeling it. These are swing voters, and in too many states, they went for Trump. The enthusiasm gap was predictable. Demographics aren't destiny. Latino voters shifted Republican nationally, but Democrat in North Carolina with the right candidate. Context and execution matter. Rather than wallow in factional recriminations about past failures, Democrats should accentuate the positive. Through his many misdeeds, Trump has set the table for Democrats to present a new vision for government, one that should usher them to a historical mandate. There is a widespread fear that the next two elections will decide whether to paraphrase Lincoln, government of, by, and for the people will perish from the earth. But merely disclaiming this to voters won't automatically produce the desired results. Voters need to see the party's vision and will recognize it as direction if they wish to go. Democrats have formulated such a vision before and sold it even spectacularly to the electorate. Now, with everything on the line, they have to get real, get unified, and get to work. That's from Clarence Page of the Tribune Content Agency.
Well, we see Clarence Page's views in this section on occasion. He's a very salient writer, in my opinion. Well, it's halfway past the hour. We remind you that you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and we'll turn to some opinions from local folks. The first one, in my view, from a friend of mine, Joel Weiss. We acted together in a show at Desiderio's Dinner Theater a couple of summers ago. He says, baseball fantasies grow over time. When I was 11, I was pretty sure I was going to become a Major League Baseball player. I was reasonably certain that not only would I be a 20-game winning pitcher every year, I'd also be a very good hitter. Perhaps my goals were a tad too lofty. Yes, it's true that as a Little League player in Rochester for the team known as Moose in the Southside Little League, I only got one hit all season. It's also true that I led the entire league in the number of times I was hit by a pitch. I like to look back and say it was because I was crowded. I was fearless and always crowded the plate. Others might say it was because my reaction time to an inside pitch was just a bit slow. Regardless of my season-long slump, I had an opportunity to redeem myself in the final game of the league championship series. My team could win it all. The championship game was to be held on a Friday. League regulations clearly stated that teams could only designate 5 players to be pitchers throughout the season. I was one of the 5, but not so strangely, hadn't pitched all season. The league also limited how many innings per week a pitcher could pitch. The other 4 pitchers had more experience, could throw harder, and had better control than I did, but I had something they didn't have, availability. Because of the playoffs, 2 of the 4 had already reached their maximum number of innings for the week. The third was away on a family vacation. The 4th pitcher had pitched a little during the week, but he could still pitch 4 innings. That left at least 3 for me. Nervous? I didn't know the meaning of the word. I also didn't know the meaning of the word moderation. In preparation for my seasonal debut, I spent the entire day before the game bitching to my friend Howard. I threw fastballs, curveballs, changeups, and more fastballs. I was so excited that I was finally going to get my chance to show them my stuff on the mound. The day of the game, I could barely move my right arm. To say that it was sore is an understatement. I thought I could tough it out. I didn't want to mention to my coaches that I had spent the entire previous day throwing hundreds of pitches. 30 minutes before the game, one of the assistant coaches warmed me up, making sure I could get the ball over the plate and have reasonable velocity. The plan was that I would pitch the first 3 innings and hopefully would be in striking distance, and then the other eligible pitcher would finish up and pitch the final 4 innings. After warming me up and recognizing that my fastball couldn't break a pane of glass, the assistant coach and the coach conferred. My chance at stardom was taken away, and the other pitcher pitched all 7 innings. I'm assuming the coaches invoked some little-known rule that would only hold up in a dire emergency, which this apparently was. Anyway, in spite of my inability to break into the lineup as the starting pitcher, Moose won the game, and I got a championship trophy, which I still have. Looking back, I believe my experience was only a temporary setback. Who knows what's down the road? I wonder if any major league team needs a 79-year-old pitcher with a wicked fastball. Scholl's a terrific guy. When he started out, I thought it was going to be the game was on a Friday. Scholl's Jewish. He would have had a tough time pitching on a Friday evening back then, but, well, that wasn't where the story went.
That's funny. Well, from another voice, a story about an article about auto insurance from Tom Kapowski, Buffalo native and a partner at Kahana Field. New Yorkers pay some of the highest auto insurance rates in the country. The average driver here allocates 2.23% of their household income just to keep a car legal on the road. Governor Kathy Hochul just did something about it in signing landmark insurance reform legislation as part of New York's budget. Hochul demonstrated something that increasingly is rare in American politics: the willingness to fight a powerful, well-funded special interest, the trial bar, on behalf of ordinary people who simply want to afford a car. For years, New York has operated as the nation's most hospitable environment for insurance fraud, not because New Yorkers are dishonest, but because a legal and regulatory framework essentially invited bad actors to loot the system. New York has nearly 2,000 staged car crashes per year, the second highest rate in the nation. Wow. These are scripted, orchestrated collisions designed to funnel victims to prearranged clinics that bill insurance for unnecessary MRIs, procedures, and evaluations up to the full $50,000 no-fault limit per person. Wow. The fraud isn't opportunistic, it is industrial, as every law-abiding New Yorker whose insurance bill has climbed year after year is subsidizing it. New York's lawsuit regime compounds the problem. Until now, the legal definition of serious injury was vague enough that claimants with minor temporal conditions could sue for pain and suffering, and the trial bar defended every loophole ferociously. Hochul's new law tightens the standards so the damages for pain and suffering are reserved for the victims who can objectively prove serious injury. Drivers found mostly at fault for causing a crash can no longer sue their victim for outsized payouts. And payouts are capped at $100,000 for anyone who is driving uninsured, drunk, or while committing a felony. Really? I didn't even know you could do any of that. With these reforms actually lowering rates? Yes. After Florida enacted sweeping reforms in 2022 to 23, nearly 80% of the state's auto policyholders are seeing lower rates in 2026. State Farm returned to $533 million. State Farm returned $533 million to Florida drivers. Progressive refunded over $1 billion. For a Democrat governor to push through structural no-fault reform over the vigorous objection of the trial bar is an act of political courage that transcends ideology. And that's from Tim Kapowski.
Well, we'll see how this legislation helps the New Yorkers insurance rates-wise.
I can't believe that they can pay out that much to uninsured, drunk, and felony-committing people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, we're going to turn to Buffalo next. The finance section, and the big article on that section is headlined, "After Setback, Trump Restoring Tariff Engine." President Trump pledged to restore his tariff regime after setbacks in the Supreme Court and other legal challenges. Now he's doing it, but not in the blustery, fly-by-the-seat-of-his-pants, all-caps, late-night truth social post manner that once defined his tariff policy. Trump's quiet, methodical, patient new approach to tariffs is on purpose. The tools he's now using to rebuild his tariff engine are more precise than the last ones, but if he succeeds, his latest tariffs could be just as drastic as his previous ones and longer lasting. Late Tuesday night, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer published a 98-page report detailing the result of a months-long investigation into trading partners' policies on buying goods made with forced labor. The report found that 60 economies the United States does business with have failed to impose or effectively enforce prohibitions on importing items into their countries that were made by people who are working against their will or for insufficient funds. Others, Greer said, have taken initial steps on restricting forced labor, but he said each U.S. trading partner has to resolve the issue more swiftly. The failure of our most important trading partners to address the importation of goods made with forced labor is unacceptable, Greer said in a statement. This creates a dynamic where American workers are forced to compete globally on an unlevel playing field. As a remedy, Greer proposed a minimum 10% across-the-board tariff on all of the trading partners the administration investigated, citing authority from Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. Several trading blocs that had previously entered into trade negotiations with the United States, including Canada, Mexico, the European Union, Ecuador, Indonesia, and Pakistan, would be subject to the new 10% tariffs. Many other countries would face a steeper 12.5% tariff, including China, Brazil, Japan, and India. Those are the trading partners the USTR maintains have not taken even initial steps to rid forced labor from their economies of imported goods. The tariffs won't go into effect immediately. They've entered a public comment period that will last through July 6th, and the USTR will hold hearings on the proposal on July 7th. Trump has signaled for a long time that he would use alternate methods to impose his tariffs, even before the Supreme Court in February declared Trump had no authority to use emergency powers to levy import taxes. Immediately after the Supreme Court ruling, Trump announced a universal 10% tariff for 150 days under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. But in early May, a panel of U.S. judges at the U.S. Court of International Trade found the administration lacked the justification to enact tariffs. That was always intended to be a temporary measure, and the administration has signaled it could use Section 301 as a more permanent solution. Section 301 allows the USTR to investigate countries potentially violating other nations' trade agreements or practices that hurt U.S. businesses. Trump used Section 301 during his first term to hike tariffs on several Chinese imports, along with aircraft and other European Union goods. And unlike Section 122, there's no limit to the level or duration of tariffs arising from Section 301 investigations. The administration isn't done. Greer's office is also investigating more than a dozen countries for excess manufacturing capacity.
And in development, city to unveil Adams Street homes. This is from Jonathan Epstein. 4 years after the City and Regional Land Bank announced plans for an inner-city housing initiative to fill in 24 vacant city-owned lots with new homes, the first homes in the Adams Street housing initiatives are ready for prime time. 3 fully furnished model homes are now available for open house tours in Buffalo's historic Broadway Fillmore neighborhood, with 3 distinct home styles that are part of the affordable housing project. Moultrie Murphy and Bergen Realty Group, the brokerage firm handling the sales of the properties, is showing them off Saturday from noon to 3 p.m. at 572, 578, and 590 Adams. The project is a partnership between the Land Bank, formerly the Buffalo Erie Niagara Land Improvement Corporation, along with the city, Evans Bank, and MMB to increase affordable housing options on the east side while strengthening a neighborhood pockmarked with vacant lots. The goal was to encourage developers and builders to fill in gaps on the street using city-owned vacant land. Initially, the developer that was chosen planned to consolidate the lots and construct 7 homes, but costs and interest rates soared, forcing officials to revise their plans. A new developer was chosen, and the $4.8 million project received state funding to subsidize a $350,000 to $400,000 cost of each home, bringing the sales price down significantly to be affordable to a moderate income household at about $240,000. The homes were designed by architect Michael Lukashevsky of Orchard Park and built by Bucilli Custom Homes and Bucilli Renovations of Hamburg. The 12 homes will include 8 two-story houses of 1,420 square feet and 4 single-story ranches at about 1,320 square feet, all located in the 500 block of Adams. All would have 3 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms with a covered entry porch in front, an unfinished basement, and a driveway. The project is funded with a $2 million construction loan from NTB Bank, which brought Evans, as well as a forgivable loan of up to $1.8 million from New York State Homes and Community Renewables Affordable Home Ownership Opportunity Program and $500,000 from the Land Bank. Buyers will be selected by lottery after working with MMB. For information, contact MMB at 716-534-8495. This project demonstrates what is possible when public, private, and community partners work together to create quality housing opportunities and reinvest in our neighborhoods, MMB said in a statement. And again, that number is 716-534-8495. That sounds like a great project.
It really does.
Yeah, you go through the east side. I would love to see stuff happen there.
I really liked the comment they made early in the article. 3 different style, distinct home styles.
That would be nice, not seeing all these salt boxes.
Oh, I know places like that. I drive around the city and I drive down a street where they've gotten involved in renewing, and every house looks the same.
Yeah. I like something unique and different.
Well, this maybe will accomplish that.
That'll be great.
Hope it works well for the people involved.
Yes.
Well, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. There are only 2 names here today. Drews, Phyllis F. Nee Crumlish. Doesn't give us any information about her as far as age goes, but she's from somewhere in Buffalo or Kenmore. And Ryan, SSJ, Sister Patrice. That's Sisters of St. Joseph. I will remember to extend my condolences to a couple of good friends of mine from that order who I will see in church on Sunday morning. And that's the list for today. No big obituaries at all. So again, if you'd like any information about either of those names, give us a call at 716-821-5555.
And now we will move on to a bit of entertainment with Georgia Nichols for the Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Friday, June 5th of 2026. You're imaginative and innovative. You're also steadfast, farsighted, and have excellent communication skills. This is a lovely year. Enjoy socializing. Express your creativity and desire for life. Nurture the happiness and beauty that you have within. Let your guard down and loosen up a bit. Old friends might reappear. And the stars will show what kind of a day you're going to have. 5 being dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And they've kind of got everybody having a lot of stars today. So here's the stars in your eyes. Aries has 4 of them. Listen to the advice of someone older or more experienced. Hey, I am old. It could be beneficial for you. Nevertheless, you might get in a dispute with a friend about financial matters. Stay chill. Tonight, socialize. Taurus is 3 stars. Tread carefully today because you might find yourself at odds with a parent, boss, or someone in authority, including the police. Never underestimate the power of courtesy, and tonight, you're noticed. By the police? Gemini is 4 stars. Steer clear of controversial subjects, politics, religion, and racial issues because this is the classic day for an argument with others. Tonight, broaden your horizons. And Cancer is 3 stars. Money squabbles and issues about shared property, taxes, and debt might arise today. Tonight, check your finances. Leo, 4 stars. For the most part, this can be a favorable day for you. However, you might be at odds with a partner, spouse, friend, or someone in authority. Tonight, listen with courtesy. Virgo is 4 stars. Don't get your belly in a rash about issues related to politics, religion, foreign countries, or legal matters, because there's very little you can do right now. And tonight, get better organized. Libra, also 4 stars. Work-related discussions about budgets, expensive, and financial matters will go well today, tonight, and enjoy the company of others. Scorpio is also 4 stars. Be patient with family members today, including partner, spouse, and close friends, because arguments can arise very easily. Tonight, relax at home. Sagittarius has 4 stars. Avoid work-related squabbles or arguments related to your health or a pet. It will only drain your energy and you don't need this. Tonight, learn something new. Capricorn, 3 stars. Parents must be patient with their kids today. Participants in sports must be patient with each other. Also, romantic partners must be ready to cut each other some slack. Tonight, check your assets. Aquarius is 4 stars. Today, the moon is in your sign at odds with Mars, which can encourage needless disputes, irritability, and rash actions. Tonight, you're strong. Pisces is 3 stars. Be patient with daily contacts today, especially siblings, relatives, and neighbors, to avoid mishaps and arguments. It might create later regrets. Tonight. Enjoy privacy. And after that bunch of stuff, I think I'll be private tonight. Now, today in history. In 1947, U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall proposed what became the Economic Recovery Act of 1948, or the Marshall Plan, which helped Europe financially recover from World War II. And then in 1956, a federal court ruled that racial segregation on city buses in Montgomery, Alabama violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In 1968, Palestinian Jordanian Sirhan shot U.S. Senator Robert Kennedy, who died the next day, and Sirhan was convicted of murder and given a death sentence that was commuted to life in prison in 1972. In 1981, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention published the first article describing what became known as acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. In 2004, former President Ronald Reagan died at 93. The actor-turned-politician died from pneumonia after a decade-long battle with Alzheimer's disease. And in 2007, Louis Scooter, known as Scooter Libby, the ex-chief of staff for Vice President Dick Cheney, was handed a 30-month sentence after being convicted of obstruction of justice and perjury in a case involving Libby leaking the name of Valerie Plame Wilson, operations chief in the CIA's clandestine operations directorate during the Iraq War. Well,
turning to back to the business section, a parasite found in Texas could further elevate prices for beef. This from Heather Schlitz of the Reuters News Syndicate. New World screwworm, a devastating parasite that eats cattle and other wild animals alive, traveled north from Central America to Mexico before being confirmed in a Texas calf on Wednesday.
Yuck.
Creeping past biological barriers that kept the pest contained for decades, experts said. Washington has halted cattle imports from Mexico for the past year, citing the insects spread further into Mexico. With the U.S. cattle herd already at a multi-decade low, the closure elevated record-high beef prices by keeping more calves out of the U.S. supply chain. The first confirmed case in the U.S. during the latest outbreak represents a serious challenge for ranchers and could cause beef prices to rise further. Screwworms are parasitic flies whose females lay eggs in wounds on any warm-blooded animal. Livestock and wild animals are usually the victims. Once the eggs hatch, hundreds of screwworm larvae use their sharp mouths to burrow through living flesh, feeding, enlarging the wound, and eventually killing their host if left untreated.
Ugh.
When screwworms infect a cow, a tiny scrape, a recent brand, or a healing ear tag can quickly become a gaping wound, carpeted with wriggling maggots that put the entire herd at risk of infestation. Screwworms were eradicated from the U.S. in the 1960s when researchers began releasing massive numbers of sterilized male screwworm flies that mate with wild female screwworms to produce infertile eggs. An interesting tactic. The U.S. typically imports over 1 million cattle from Mexico every year. The import suspension contributed to rising beef prices by tightening the supply of beef cattle, which dwindled after drought forced ranchers to slash herds. Mexican cattle are usually fed and fattened on U.S. farms for 5 to 6 months before slaughter, and a diminished slaughter rate can elevate beef prices. An expansive U.S. outbreak would further tighten the cattle supply and put other livestock and household pets at risk. Screwworms will even feed on humans if they can, said Dr. Timothy Goldsmith, a veterinary medicine professor at the University of Minnesota. Homeless people would be especially vulnerable to infestation because they sleep outside and have less access to hygiene products and medical care, Goldsmith said. What is being done to fight the parasite? A factory designed to breed and sterilize screwworms in Panama is releasing 100 million sterile flies each week. But experts say more factories would have needed to come online quickly to choke off the flies' spread north. A production facility for sterile flies in Texas is not expected to open until late 2027. USDA completed a dispersal facility for sterile flies in the state in February. Screwworms cannot fly more than 12 miles on their own, but they can cover large distances while burrowed inside their hosts, said Tanya Swiger, entomologist at Texas A&M University. The flies have already passed through the narrowest stretches of land in Panama and Mexico, meaning exponentially more sterile flies need to be released to control the outbreak. Last year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced it would invest $21 million to convert a fruit fly factory in Mexico to produce sterile screwworms.
Fruit fly factory?
Fruit
I'll
fly
tell you,
factory.
there's a lot of interesting.
I don't know why you'd want to have a factory for fruit flies, but
Come into my kitchen when I buy a bag of apples.
there you go. Or peaches.
Really?
Well, in the political notebook, President Trump said he would move to nominate acting Attorney General Todd Blanche yesterday to permanently lead the Justice Department, which would make his former personal lawyer the nation's top law enforcement officer. He's acting Attorney General. Tomorrow, I'm instructing Dan Scavino and everyone else that's involved in that very complicated process, which is going to go, I think, very quickly, that we are going to make him permanent Attorney General, Trump said at a White House event, according to a video posted on X late Wednesday by his aide Scavino. Blanche, age 51, took over leadership of the Justice Department after Trump fired Pam Bondi in April amid tension over the agency's release of files related to convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and frustration that the department was not moving forcefully enough against the White House's supposed political enemies. Blanche has faced backlash from Republican senators and even some White House aides over the Justice Department's now scuttled plan to create a $1.8 billion fund for victims of alleged government weaponization. To be confirmed, Blanche would need near-unanimous Republican support in the Senate, which Republicans control by a narrow 43 to 47 margin. He said on Tuesday that the DOJ would not be moving forward with the plan, which sparked fierce bipartisan opposition and threatened to derail a $72 billion funding package for Trump's immigration crackdown. But Trump Wednesday would not say whether the fund had been terminated or was on hold, saying, "I'd have to ask the lawyers. I don't know. I love it. I think it's so important," Trump told reporters at the White House. The weaponization fund, as far as I'm concerned, was a beautiful thing. Congress this week that he would not commit to putting anything into writing. I'm not sure what that sentence is supposed to say. Blanche has moved quickly as acting Attorney General to ingratiate himself to Trump and his political movement. In addition to the fund, the DOJ under Blanche has removed press releases detailing cases arising from the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, released a report condemning past prosecutions of anti-abortion activists, and secured criminal charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center civil rights group and former FBI Director James Comey, a longtime Trump foe. Well, you're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, June 5th, on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Don Williams.
and J.J. Patek, and another worrying article from John Harris. Measles confirmed in county. How worried should you be? For the first time in 8 years, there's a confirmed positive measles infection in an Erie County resident. And more residents may have been exposed to measles if they visit Golisano Children's Hospital of Buffalo's Emergency Department on May 24th or May 28th, or if they visit a health center at 1021 Broadway in Buffalo midday on May 28th. But the announcement on Thursday of the first confirmed measles case in Erie County since 2018 is an important public health reminder of the importance of the measles, mumps, rubella, or MMR vaccine, which is 97% effective against measles after the second of 2 doses. The MMR vaccination rate in Western New York is better than most areas, but there are concerning pockets where the rates could be higher. Measles is a canary in the coal mine for the decreasing vaccination rates, said Dr. Thomas Russo, professor and chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases in the University at Buffalo Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. It is one of our most infectious viruses, so I think this needs to be a wake-up call for those individuals that are eligible and have chosen not to get vaccinated for whatever reason. The Erie County Department of Health is working with GCH Buffalo and the organization at 1021 Broadway to conduct contact tracing and identify those who have been exposed to measles. Dr. Mark Hikar, Chief of Infectious Diseases at UBMD Pediatrics and GCH Buffalo, said the hospital had been building lists of people who signed into the emergency department during those time periods. In addition, the hospital has already reviewed its staff who worked in the hospital on that time, and every employee is considered immune. If you're vaccinated against the measles, you're very well protected, and generally during outbreaks we've been seeing around our country and other countries, it's predominantly the unvaccinated who get infected, Hikar said. Here is what residents should know. Person who tested positive for measles, confirmed through lab testing with the state Wednesday, had recently traveled to a country where measles are endemic, which is a place where infection has spread continuously in a population for a year or more, according to the county health department. The 2018 measles case in Erie County was also travel-related. How do I know if I was exposed? The county said the infected person had visited multiple locations in Erie County during their infection period, potentially exposing others to measles on May 24th and May 28th. The county said anyone who visited the following locations may have been exposed to measles. The GCH Buffalo's emergency department, specifically between 7:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. May 24th. 1021 Broadway in Buffalo between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. May 28th. GCH Buffalo's emergency department between noon and 9:30 p.m. On May 28th, the 1021 Broadway building includes Jericho Road Community Health Center, Broadway Pediatrics, U.S. Postal Service Broadway Buffalo, UBMD Internal Medicine, Chai's Kitchen and Catering, and the Care Management Coalition of Western New York, including employees and visitors to Every Person Influences Children, Mental Health Advocates of Western New York, Buffalo Urban League Project Hope, Beyond Support Western New York or Network, and Parent Network of Western New York, Project Play Western New York, South Advocacy Association of New York State, or SANYS, Center for Self Advocacy, and New York State Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. Those dates and times reflect when the infected person was in those areas in a 2-hour period after the person left the area. Measles virus remains alive on air and in surfaces for up to 2 hours. County Health Department spokesperson Cara Kane said the department is working with GCH Buffalo and the organizations at 1021 Broadway to identify those who may have been exposed to measles. The county has contacted them by phone and mail as well as by Thursday's public announcement. As we continue in our case investigation, there may be specific individuals who we advise to quarantine at home based on their level of exposure if they do not have evidences of immunity, Kane said in an email. Those people will be notified directly by phone and or email. So how worried should I be? The county said people are considered protected or immune to measles if they were born between 1957, the presumption that those individuals were exposed to measles, or received 2 doses of measles, mumps, and rubella, or the MMR vaccine, or have had measles disease, or have a lab test confirming immunity. The people that need to be concerned are those individuals that haven't been vaccinated, whether because they passed on the vaccine or for whatever reason, or they're too young to get vaccinated, or if they have underlying health conditions where they can't get vaccinated, said Russo, UB infectious diseases expert. Typically, the first dose of MMR vaccine should be given at 12 to 15 months of age, and the second dose should be given at 4 to 6 years of age, or the age of school entry, though many people may be vaccinated later in life. The New York State measles immunization is required of children enrolled in schools, daycare, and pre-kindergarten. Since August of 1990, college students have also been required to demonstrate immunity against measles. In unvaccinated groups, Russo said those at highest risk of developing severe disease are children younger than 5, as well as adults 20 years old or older who are pregnant or immunocompromised. The mortality rate for measles, Russo said, is about 1 to 3 deaths per 1,000 reported cases. And what if I was exposed to measles? For those who are exposed who do not have proof of immunity, post-exposure treatment is recommended by public health officials. For example, the MMR vaccine can be given to eligible exposed people within 72 hours of exposure, or immune globulin can be administered within 6 days of exposure. In this situation, the window of time in which MMR vaccine or immune globulin would be effective to prevent illness and is past, the county said. The county recommended that anyone exposed to measles, and particularly those without immunity or who are not sure if they've been vaccinated, should contact their healthcare provider if they develop measles symptoms. The county's guidance for those exposed is to watch for measles symptoms such as fever, coughs, and rash for 21 days after their exposure day. At this point, it's really sort of more damage control to try to prevent further spread and secondary cases, Russo said. And what are symptoms of measles? Symptoms include fever, cough, pink and watery eyes or runny nose, followed by appearance of a rash. Symptoms usually appear 10 to 12 days after exposure, but may appear as early as 7 days and as late as 21 days after exposure. For those who are exposed or have symptoms consistent with measles, it's important to call ahead to a healthcare provider before going in person for care, the county said. This will help to prevent others at these facilities from being exposed to the illness. Now, where do vaccination rates stand and how does Western New York compare? In general, both Russo and Highcar said MMR vaccination rates in Western New York are better than most areas, but there are some concerning pockets around the area. Highcar noted there is a need for Western New York to do better at getting young children their first dose of MMR vaccine according to the state data. 86.2% of 2-year-olds in Erie County have received their first MMR dose, which is above the statewide rate of about 81%. That figure is just 77.3% in Allegheny County and 73.9% in Cattaraugus County, and the lowest in the state is 52.9% in Yates County and the Finger Lakes. Looking to the time when children get their second dose, an estimated 97.8% of the kindergartners in New York State as of the 2024 to 25 school year have received the MMR vaccine, according to federal data. That's important because when more than 95% of people in a community are vaccinated, most people are protected through herd immunity. We're in much better shape here in Western New York than other parts of the country where vaccine rates are much, much worse. But our shields are not 100%, Russo said. Well, I had measles,
Yes.
so according to them, I'm okay.
Oh, yeah. That's
And
what
I
they
got
say.
a bunch of shots, but I don't know which ones.
Yeah. Well, on the bright side, and that's actually the headline of this article from Emma Kresge, news staff reporter, when you believe in something, you can move mountains. Those are the words a library full of Clarence Central School's fourth graders cheered after listening to the story of Isaac Stern, a Jewish violinist who played an essential role in saving Carnegie Hall from demolition in the 1960s. I remember Isaac Stern as a violinist, but I didn't know about that role in saving Carnegie Hall. Lauren Bloomberg and Wendy Weisbrot, who are the director and manager, respectively, of the Holocaust Education Resource Organization of the Jewish Federation of Buffalo, flipped through the whimsical pages of the greatest song of all, How Isaac Stern United the World to Save Carnegie Hall, by Megan Hoyt. Afterwards, the students of Sheridan Hill Elementary School had an intense question to answer. What was their greatest song of all? What did they care about? Good thing they had some paper, colorful markers, and a megaphone to share their passions. Bloomberg and Weisbrot came to Clarence Central's Sheridan Hill Elementary School yesterday to present a kindness suitcase to the school. In the suitcase is a collection of books that help students begin to understand the Holocaust and its lessons in an age-appropriate way. Yesterday's presentation marked the 100th kindness suitcase Hero has presented in the last 4 years. Bloomberg and Weisbrot sat on the library floor, smiling as the fourth graders shared their drawings and slogans to advocate for their soccer teams, for saving animals, for playing the trumpet, and helping others, among other passions and interests. Yesterday was Holocaust Survivor Day, a day to honor those who survived the Nazi genocide of about 6 million Jewish people and the persecution and murder of millions of others. The Kindness Suitcase is a collection of 15 books with accompanying lesson plans and a Paddington Bear stuffed toy. It is an educational resource designed by Hero to help students explore themes of empathy, inclusion, and compassion through reading. The Paddington Bear, often the star of the suitcase when presented to rooms of schoolchildren, represents the theme of Kindertransport, which was the name of the organized rescue efforts of thousands of Jewish children escaping Nazi-controlled territory to the United Kingdom between 1938 and 1940. As for the kindness suitcases, the initiative began in 2022 after Governor Kathy Hochul signed legislation to improve Holocaust education in New York schools. Bloomberg and Weisbrot, former elementary school teachers, realized that there was a lack of age-appropriate curriculum for young students. And they buried the rest of this article in the middle of the... Here we go. We took the charge seriously that our youngest learners needed Holocaust education. And we want to clarify that doesn't mean the graphic pictures that you sometimes envision, Weisbrot said at the celebration at Sheridan Hill. What it means is that what happens when a group may be excluded and how words can escalate, and more so, it gave us a vehicle to actually feature upstanders, role models, and foster kindness, respect, mutual understanding, and tolerance, she added. 1 year and hundreds of children's books later, Bloomberg and Weisbrot had curated the K-3 curriculum for the Kindness Suitcase. Our goal was, literally, if we could get this into 4 schools, we would be happy, Weisbrot said. Matt Fromm, The superintendent of Clarence Central School District embraced the kindness suitcases to help shape Clarence students into kind, compassionate people. We know that the world at times today can feel divided, and we need stories more than ever, Fromm said. Stories remind us that words matter. Stories teach us that kindness is strength. Stories help us remember that small acts really can change the world. And so today we celebrate the gifting of 100th suitcase. Sheridan Hill Elementary's librarian, Renee Harris, said she has noticed that her students put themselves in the shoes of characters from the suitcase books. Some of the books have been so popular that she has purchased multiple copies to keep in circulation. Jessica Bork, the librarian at Clarence Middle School, noted that the suitcases do more than just educate students about the Holocaust. They're not all Holocaust books, Bork said. They're a very good selection of kindness and empathy and supporting others, even though they're different. Hero reaches more than 15,000 students across Western New York annually, its leaders said. Well, that is certainly a worthwhile program.
It's nice to have nice stories in the middle of all these others that could drag you down.
It is nice.
From Buffalo next, a story about development from Jonathan Epstein. Niagara Falls ready to move ahead with Centennial Park plan. Niagara Falls is ready to move ahead with its first opportunity in decades to redevelop a significant amount of land near its downtown. City officials are focusing on plans for a new sports and entertainment facility anchored by a minor league hockey team. Mayor Robert Restaino said Thursday that's still likely several years away, including planning and construction, but those plans got a boost after the City Council Wednesday night approved an agreement with New York City billionaire Howard Milstein's Niagara Falls redevelopment that will result in the city getting 10 acres of land it wanted for years for its $210 million Centennial Park project along John B. Daly Boulevard. The agreement, reached under state judge's guidance after years of acrimony, settles a decades-long dispute over prime downtown property that has been owned by NFR since the 1990s without any sort of development taking place. Now, the city of Niagara Falls can answer the question that's been asked by so many. Do you have the land yet? Said Restaino. All that's left now is the paperwork that transfers the property so the city can respond with a resounding yes to that. It'll be good to see something good happen in Niagara Falls. That new complex would feature a 6,000-seat sports arena that could host concerts, some at the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, as well as a parking ramp and parkland that would be designed to lure more people to Niagara Falls, particularly in the off-season. But while it's been Restaino's favorite project for several years, officials haven't been able to proceed with planning or financing because NFR control the land, not the city. Now that conversation can pick up with earnest, Restaino said. The city can now chart its own course. The fact that the city will now have development opportunities over 10 acres downtown is something the city hasn't had in well over 2 decades. And that's also an exciting opportunity for us. In exchange for the donation, quote unquote, of land by NFR, the city approved a new zoning district for 43 acres of adjacent land that NFR wants for its proposed $1.5 billion data center campus called the Niagara Digital Campus. However, nothing is in the agreement requires NFR to move forward with development, and Restaino acknowledged skepticism about NFR ever bringing the data center to fruition, noting that the company has owned more than 142 acres in Niagara Falls for nearly 30 years without ever doing anything with it. Obviously, that's a question for the landholder, he said. I know that's been proposed in conversation for the landowner since they commenced the action against us in 2023. But I don't know. I don't have any reason to support or deny what they're going to do. I can't tell you that I know for certain when this will happen. The city has tried many times to prod NFR into action, but he said the difference is this time that the agreement was negotiated and approved under the eyes of State Supreme Court Deborah A. Chimes. This is a court-ordered settlement. I think that brings with it a bit more heft than just parties coming together and establishing some contractual or other method of settling development issues, Restaino said. I don't know that this would have happened without the efforts of Justice Chimes. From the city's perspective, attention will now turn to planning for the Centennial Parks project. securing an anchor tenant, and obtaining financing. Restaino's vision for a Gateway Park, an events campus, would feature an oval-shaped indoor arena and ice rinks that could also host concerts and other big events, as well as a secondary ice facility for practice, the parking ramp, and abundant green space. Those are first and most immediate items that will need to be addressed, the mayor said. Past versions have included a water feature with landscape ramps over a human-made pond and a wall-climbing adventure course, but those are still to be determined. And a proposed amphitheater sphere has already relocated to a downtown site. As to the rest of the spaces, subject to sharpening the pencil, he said, we want to engage about what we can put there. The arena facility itself will have a seating capacity of 6,000 with stadium seating. That's 3 times the size of the Niagara Falls Convention Center, and the event center at the Seneca Niagara Hotel and Casino across the street, both of which have just basic floor seating with an elevated stage. The city has been in preliminary discussions with the Ontario Hockey League about getting a franchise for Niagara Falls. Restaino has said he's spoken multiple times in the last 6 months with the OHL's commissioner, who is excited by the prospect of bringing a team to the new facility and has potential investors already interested in owning the team. The commissioner texted him Wednesday night after the council vote. The mayor said he has also had one call with the commissioner of the United States Hockey League, with a minor league competitor to the OHL. The league that has expressed the greatest interest in Niagara Falls at the current moment is the OHL. Either way, having a professional sports team playing a full season of games would guarantee there's activity on the site during the late fall and winter months when the city's tourism otherwise slows down. Imagine if you have traffic downtown because you have events there or the OHL team is home, Restaino said. It's really about creating traffic. Then there's the financing. Restaino said the city can use general fund reserves for the $4.03 million payment to NFR. The payment is ostensibly for legal costs, not for the land, even though it's the exact amount that an appraisal determined the land was worth. But for the construction, the mayor said he's counting on public and private partnership with the private entity running the facility and the state providing help comparable to what Albany has provided for other projects in other cities like Highmark Stadium or KeyBank Center. There are other communities that have enjoyed larger investments from the state government in their downtowns, he said. Certainly there are projects that are going to be out there from Niagara Falls to Long Island, but I believe there's a time for us, and not a moment too soon. Mm-hmm. Beautiful place like Niagara Falls out there on the Niagara River, and the city needs help.
Jay Tokaz reports that the Buffalo Diocese in 2025 received 6 complaints of clergy abuse that were reported to the Erie County District Attorney's Office. According to an outside audit of the diocese's child protection measures, only one of the allegations involved a member of the clergy who was still in active ministry, and it came from a third party who declined to provide the name of the victim or details of the alleged abuse. The accused priest in active ministry was identified in the audit only as Cleric A, and no disciplinary action appears to have been taken against him. A complaint against the priest came on September 30th from a third party who used the diocese's website. The victim assistance coordinator emailed back about a week later and received no further information about the allegation, according to the audit report. The victim assistance coordinator did not have enough information from the third-party complainant to investigate further, and the audit found that the allegation didn't meet the definition of a complaint as established under terms of the Attorney General's settlement agreement.
Okay.
The diocese forwarded the information it received to the DA's office on December 30th, and the victim assistance coordinator also placed documentation of her efforts to contact the complainant into the accused priest's personnel file, the audit found. The diocese's commitment to its child protection policies and procedures is an important part of the diocese's ongoing efforts to ensure that the mistakes of the past will not be repeated, Bishop Fisher said in a statement accompanying the audit. We will continue to pray for the healing of those who have been harmed and for forgiveness for what they have endured.
Now you're listening. Whoops. Well, I guess we are.
I hope they're listening.
Yeah,
if not,
right.
They're not hearing you.
I'm looking at the time here. It's only 22 minutes past the hour. And then the paper shows time for a break at 22 minutes past the hour, but we can still move on to sports.
A break?
So, around the men from Lance Lazowski. The far corner of the practice field, far away from the Buffalo Bills' other wide receivers, Joshua Palmer listened to an athletic trainer's instructions. Palmer couldn't catch passes from Josh Allen during voluntary workouts, and it was still too soon for Palmer to join the receivers for individual drills. Nearly 8 months since he writhed in pain on the grass at Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Palmer is still recovering from an injury that derailed his first season in Buffalo. It was probably one of the most difficult things I've had to deal with my entire football career, Palmer told the Buffalo News. The injury was very hard. Palmer's left ankle buckled as the Falcons' nickel cornerback D. Alford, whom the Bills signed as a free agent this offseason, dragged the receiver to the ground. There was more to the injury than Palmer expected. He declined to reveal specifics, but the tackle caused other issues in his left leg. After missing 3 games, Palmer returned in Week 11 to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. The injury lingered. His route running and run blocking weren't the same. It bothered him to the point that the Bills decided to make Palmer inactive for both playoff games. In the first season of a 3-year contract worth up to $29 million, Palmer produced just 22 catches for 303 yards and 0 touchdowns. The disappointing start, combined with concerns about Keon Coleman's maturity, led general manager and president of football operations Brandon Beane to add more receivers for Allen. DJ Moore, a veteran with 4 seasons of at least 1,000 receiving yards, arrived in March through a trade from the Bears. Skylar Bell, out of college football's most productive receivers in 2025, joined the Bills as a 4th-round draft pick. Palmer must watch from the sideline as his competition catches passes from Allen in practice. The scenario is not what he envisioned a year ago, when he was one of the then-rating MVP's go-to targets. Buffalo was supposed to be the place where he proved that he had yet to reach his potential as an NFL receiver. He wanted to be the deep threat the Bills were missing. He wanted to win. It's humbling, he added. It teaches you how to manage expectations as a man. You can't really determine anything in this league, any given season. Just because you expect something, it doesn't mean it's going to come to fruition the way you wanted it to. Whatever God gives you, just take it in stride. The Bills are still counting on Palmer in 2026. If he's healthy, Palmer is likely 3rd on the depth chart behind Moore and Khalil Shakir. The skills that convinced Beane to give Palmer a contract with $15 million fully guaranteed can separate him from the rest of the group. He lacks Moore's tantalizing top-end speed and Shakir's run-after-the-catch ability, but Palmer is a savvy route runner who understands how to get open. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert trusted Palmer enough to throw him 107 times in 2022. Palmer totaled 769 yards that season, his 2nd in the NFL, and he averaged at least 15 yards per reception each of the 2 seasons that followed. His time with the Bills got off to a rocky start last spring, however, when a minor injury prevented him from being on the field with Allen as often as Palmer needed it. Chemistry is everything between a receiver and a quarterback, especially when the pass catcher is a deep threat like Palmer. The two are still out of sync during training camp, but he showed during the season opener how he could help the Bills. Palmer caught 5 passes for 61 yards during the come-from-behind win over the Ravens. Palmer did not catch more than 2 passes in any other game. He played just 26 snaps during a win over Miami in Week 3 and 15 snaps as the Bills beat the Saints in Week 4. Finally, on the first play in Atlanta, Allen connected with Palmer on a 45-yard pass on his 2nd catch of the game. Palmer suffered the injury. I feel like Joshua Palmer hasn't changed as a player, he said. My skill set hasn't changed. It takes a lot for someone to be successful in the NFL. All I can do is control what happens on a game day. All I can control is waking up. And even that you can't really control. It's learning how to manage expectations. The injury definitely didn't help, especially with the game I was having. It was time for Palmer to secure his spot on the depth chart and earn a significant role. The regular season does not begin until September 13th. The show does not stop when a player is injured, though. Other receivers are getting opportunities. Joe Brady was promoted from offensive coordinator to head coach, but he made changes to most of the staff. There's a new offensive coordinator, that's Pete Carmichael, and receivers coach Drew Terrell. Based on recent practices, Carmichael said he's excited about the potential of the receiving corps. Palmer needs to impress when he's ready. The physical rehabilitation phase is almost finished, and it wasn't the only eye-opening experience he's had either. Palmer, who turns 27 in September, recently visited Jamaica to hold a football clinic. He collaborated with the Human Development Fund, a charity that provides emergency relief around the world to assist farmers and fishermen who were impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Palmer visited orphans. Much of his family in Toronto is from Jamaica. He heard stories. Seeing the devastation from afar, the reality was grounding, a reminder of what's important in life. The past 12 months reminded Palmer of how fragile a football career can be. One injury can send everything into a tailspin. He's not discouraged. Far from it. I'm close, he said. I'm excited. I'm feeling more like myself. It was unfortunate. It was something I had to battle through. It was kicking my butt, but my only goal is to get healthy and help the team win next year. So let's wish the best for him.
We'll hope for the best, yep.
And the Bills.
Meanwhile, if Game 1 was any indication of what this series will eventually become, then the 2026 NBA Finals are going to be absolutely enthralling. The New York Knicks outlasted the host San Antonio Spurs Wednesday evening in a thrilling back-and-forth 105-95 win to take an early lead in the best-of-7 series. An early 1-0 lead, right? With 150 left to play, Knicks All-Star Jalen Brunson hit a massive three-pointer that gave New York the lead it would never relinquish and sparked an 11-0 run to close out the game. Brunson scored 13 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter to lead the Knicks, who have now won 12 consecutive games in the postseason. And with that, New York is just 3 wins away from earning its first NBA title in 53 seasons. Here are some takeaways from Game 1. Although Karl Anthony Towns scored 18 points and scooped 12 rebounds, his biggest contribution was defensively. Tasked with being the primary defender against Victor Wembanyama, Towns not only held his own, he guarded him with a physical and disciplined approach. Wembanyama did finish with 26 points, but he shot just 6 of 21 from the floor, including 2 of 9 from three-point range. In fact, on attempts when Towns was the closest defender, Wembanyama shot just 2 of 12 from the floor. Wembanyama never appeared comfortable and made just 4 points in the paint. Towns made sure to put his hands and body on Wembanyama just so that he could feel his presence. That often led to Wembanyama backing out of the paint and settling for jumpers. In other cases, it led to wild shots, especially close to the rim. Brunson may get all the attention for his 30-point performance, but Towns had the better game by far. Let's first give Brunson a ton of credit for gritting through a game in which he returned from a first-quarter knee injury and then later had his ankle stepped on in the second. Even though Brunson scored 13 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter, the scary part for the Spurs is that Brunson didn't play particularly well, at least not to the level that he's capable of. In other words, if he does play up to his capability, they're in real big trouble. That all showed up. Let's see, the Spurs were just 4 days removed from a very physical 7-game series against the defending champions. They're a very young team, and this was just the first time they were playing for stakes this high. And that all showed up early in Game 1, with the Spurs playing too rushed through their sets, seemingly amped up by the moment. As the first quarter wore on, San Antonio settled in extremely well and used its defense to generate turnovers and easier offense. San Antonio stayed competitive throughout the game, which featured runs from both teams, but the Knicks closed the game at an 11-0 run, and the Spurs did not score a single point in the final 2:16 of the game. Well, potentially 6 games left. We'll see how that series goes.
And let us move on to high schools. Nichols gets back to unfinished business. This is from Clavis Murray. Nichols baseball coach Brian Bresee doesn't set a lofty goal when the season begin. He couldn't with 7 starters gone. Without Western New York Baseball Player of the Year Ross Yoshida, he had a roster built around freshmen and sophomores who had never seen a postseason. Bresee's focus was just for the team to improve and see how far they could go. Where it took them was back to the Georgetown Cup Championship. To be honest with you, we didn't really have a true goal this year, Brazy said. It was more of a let's just get better every day and see where that takes us and just try to be the best versions of ourselves. The Vikings at 16-6 will face St. Joe's 12-13 in the Georgetown Cup Finals beginning at 5 p.m. Friday at Canisius University. Game 2 is at 2 p.m. on Saturday with a decisive Game 3 on Sunday at noon if necessary. If Nichols wins, that will be their program's first Georgetown Cup title. It sounds like they're doing pretty good. Nichols reached the final a year ago, falling to Canisius 2-1. Brazy in his ninth spring as coach, said the memory has fueled this group all season. We feel like we have some unfinished business there, Brazy said. The challenge this spring was rebuilding from scratch. Yoshida, who earned Western New York Baseball Player of the Year honors a season ago, is now pitching at Cornell, where he was named the Ivy League Rookie of the Year as a freshman. He was the face of last year's program. Losing him and 6 other starters left Brazy with a roster of only 2 seniors surrounded by underclassmen who had to grow up fast. The fact that the Vikings are back in the championship round says something about what Brazy has built at Nichols. 10 players have been sent to college baseball in the last 5 years in a program that reloads rather than rebuilds. I think we're just trying to prove people wrong at the end of the day, Brazy said. I didn't think there were a lot of people who thought we would get back here. They did it without a superstar. Junior Dominic Bernardone has been the most consistent offensive player, battling .354 with 23 hits and 13 RBIs. Senior Brady Venditti has hit .299 with 20 hits and 13 RBIs as shortstop. Brazy is quick to point out that the contributions have come from everywhere, a byproduct of a roster that brought into a team-first system from day one of the offseason. We don't have a superstar MVP like we did last year with Ross, Brazy said. It's really been contributions across the board. The pitching staff has been the engine. Junior Max Zlotnick leads the way with a 3-0 record, a 1.60 ERA, and 44 strikeouts over 39 1/3 innings. Freshman Grayson Gordon, a first-team All-Catholic selection, is 3-0 with a 3-0 with a 1.40 ERA. And the sophomore Ryan Swanson has been reliable down the stretch, going 1-0 with a 3.59 ERA in 8 appearances, giving Brazy the 3-headed rotation he needed to make a postseason run. The pitching's been our strength all year, Brazy said. They pounded the zone and let our defense work, which is what we preach. Nichols dropped Game 1 of the semifinals against St. Mary's on a walk-off hit, then rallied to win the next 2. In a Game 3 that nearly slipped away, the Vikings closed it out. It's a very tough, resilient group, Brazy said. We made some mistakes and kind of let them back into it, but we just found a way to really battle back and finish it off. I think we learned a lot about how resilient this group is. Nichols split with St. Joe's during the regular season and enters the series after winning 8 of its last 9 games. We have our game plan, and we're just trying to do our best to execute that, Brazy said. We're not going to take them lightly, but we feel if we're in a play our game, we'll be in good shape. Both seniors will look to close out their Nichols careers with a title. Venditti is headed to Dewville to play Division II baseball, and Cody Kepler will play Division III at Alfred. For Brazy, sending players to the next level is what the program is built on, but right now there's a cup to win. If you asked me at the beginning of the season if I thought we'd be here, my answer would have been, I have no idea, Brazy said. We've definitely matured throughout the course of this season. We're just excited for the opportunity and just want to take advantage of it. Sounds to me like they did pretty darn good.
So it seems. Well, earlier I promised more about that content of the political cartoon from Adam Zaglis. Mike Harrington says voters were wrong. Ruff was obviously Coach of the Year. Tampa Bay Lightning head coach John Cooper will be in the Hockey Hall of Fame one day, and it's hard to figure out why he has never won the Jack Adams Award for the NHL's Coach of the Year, but he has no business putting his hands on the trophy this year. Lindy Ruff should have won the award. He got robbed, period. Disclaimer, writers don't vote for Coach of the Year. It's decided for some reason by members of the NHL Broadcasters Association. Voters include local team play-by-play men and analysts and many of the national folks you see on TNT, ESPN, or Canadian giant Sportsnet. It seems like a lot of them were in cahoots on this choice. You hear a lot of chatter behind the scenes, around the rinks, and on the air this season that it was time for Cooper to win the award for the first time in his career. Plenty of the broadcasters appear to have unilaterally decided this award suddenly needed to be a career achievement honor. In late March, when Cooper had already blown his Atlantic Division lead to the Sabres, TNT had a Coach of the Year discussion among its analysts. Paul Bissonnette picked Cooper, Pittsburgh's Dan Muse, and Columbus' Rick Bowness. Anderson Carter chose Cooper, Carolina's Rod Brind'Amour and Muse, and Darren Pang, Ted Cooper, Anaheim's Joe Quenneville, and Boston's Marco Storm. None mentioned Ruff. It was mind-blowing then, and it's astounding now. Cooper earned 36 first-place votes in the balloting and should not have gotten a single one. He was left off 41 of the 99 ballots, which makes a lot more sense. It makes no sense that Trump only got 26 of 99 first-place votes and was left off 32 ballots. The Sabres are understandably outraged, both behind the scenes and publicly. President of Business Operations, Pete Gwaley, essentially the public face of owner Terry Pegula, went so far Wednesday night as to tweet blind resumes matching finalists Ruff, Cooper, and Muse, and then asked completely hypothetical comparison. What if head coach 2 happened to lead a 14-year playoff drought in his second season on the job? The vote should have been Ruff and Muse and the rest of the field. If I had a ballot, Cooper wouldn't have been my top 8. I was shocked when he was announced as a top 3 finalist on May 1st. Ruff, Muse, Brind'Amour, Sturm, Montreal's Martin St. Louis, Colorado's Jared Bednar, Dallas' Glenn Gulutzin, and Philadelphia's Rick Tocchet, all right ahead of Cooper. What did Cooper do this season? Repeating, this season. His team didn't win the Atlantic Division in a year when the Florida Panthers and Leafs went belly up. His team blew an 8-point lead in the division over the 26 games. That item alone should have rendered his candidacy kaput for this year. His team lost all 3 of its head-to-head meetings to the Sabres after the Olympic break. His team completely overreacted to consecutive playoff punkings at the hands of the Panthers by deciding it was going to stage an absurdly over-the-top aggressive style. The Lightning were more interested some nights in undisciplined muggings like we saw here during the Sabres' 8-7 win in March than playing hockey. Somebody made a decision to play that way. And although it didn't count in this voting, let's not forget Cooper's team was knocked out of the playoffs in the first round for the 4th straight year. Quite a resume for sure. This vote is so out of whack. The NHL Broadcasters Association should be releasing all the individual ballots for the world to see. It's only fair to do so. At the end of the awards process, the Professional Hockey Writers Association will release all of our ballots for the Hart, Norris, Calder, Selke, Lady Byng, and Masterton trophies, as well as our league all-star selections. You can see every vote I make. Frankly, I've never understood why the broadcasters have this vote anyway. Obviously, a lot of them are paid by their teams. That should be disqualifying enough. You can vote as you want, and we can disagree. Even the one clown who left Derek Jeter off his ballot and the other clown who didn't vote for Ichiro Suzuki are within their rights to do that, those baseball votes. We can simply question their sanity. Memo to the NHL Broadcast Association, you all went to crazy town this year. Worse yet, you didn't even vote for the award in the proper way. You just decided on your own to change what it meant, and you can't do that. Say what you think, Mike.
Yeah. Well, you know what, though? Looking at the guy's record for the year, he didn't really accomplish much. So I would have to say he's right. Well,
we're a bit behind, so let's get to that advice column.
Let's get into some advice from Ask Eric. Long-term boyfriend wants to leave everything to his ex. Oh boy, sounds like trouble already. 18 years ago, I got into a relationship with someone who was separated from his wife. He was upfront about never wanting to remarry, but in no hurry to get divorced either. To this day, she lives in a house that he had built. It does upset me that they text every day or talk several times a week. He's always paid for everything for her because he said it's his fault she had no income because he wanted her to be a stay-at-home wife and mother. I've never taken any money from him or asked him to recover anything from myself or my children. Now, he may have an illness that hopefully has been caught in time. However, he says to me that if things go south, he wants me to have my personal things from the house we made together and then split everything else with her. Now, not to sound greedy, but for the last 18 years, I've bought his clothes, shoes, groceries, and taken care of him. She's done nothing but take and take and take. She'll have his Social Security, life insurance, checking accounts, and a waterfront home that's totally paid for. I have the pleasure of packing my personal belongings from the house that he rents, but anything of value he's expecting me to share half with her, even though there's something we both enjoyed purchasing together. I told him he and I should discuss it, and he said he's not discussing it anymore. I'm absolutely crushed. Are my feelings justified, or am I coming off as selfish and a sign broken heart? This one sounds obvious. Let's see what he says. Dear Broken Heart, your concern is justified. You've built a life together, gotten entangled emotionally and financially, and his thinking is disempowering you at best. At worst, it could wreak havoc on your finances and living situation. While he may be in a committed relationship with you, it's clear his connection to his estranged wife is still very strong. Some might say that relationship never really ended. If that works for everybody involved, fine, but it's clear it doesn't really work for you. The work in front of you is figuring out what's changeable and what you need to accept first. That you don't already have clarity about what is shared property, get it. Talk to a lawyer about what your rights are. If your name isn't on the lease, change that. Protecting yourself financially is paramount, but it won't change the pain you're feeling. That's something you and he need to work on, perhaps in therapy. Even if he won't discuss his wishes for a property, he needs to be willing to discuss your relationship. My goodness. 18 years. And let's try another one. Dear Eric, my sister and I go to my mom's house to help with household chores that she's unable to do due to her age and disability. I sometimes pull out boxes upon boxes to look for any important paperwork or pictures or just things that our mother would like to leave behind to my other siblings. We're a family of 5 children, and I like everything organized and put in place. What I'm trying to do is ask our mother what to do with her quote-unquote stuff. I don't want to wait till after she passes and end up arguing with siblings. I have the power of attorney on her estate. Lately, it looks like our mother doesn't want me looking through her things. How can I explain this needs to be done before she leaves this earth and us kids fighting over petty or valuable things? And it's signed, Not Making It Easy. And the answer is, Dear Easy, one thing that I don't see in your letter is an indication that your mother is asking for this help. Maybe you did, or it was assumed, but either way it should be revisited. Seems like your mother doesn't feel like she's being meaningfully involved in the sorting of her possession, and so it may feel to her that she's being treated like she's already gone. And while she may be empathetic to the incredible stress and confusion that can come from sorting through a loved one's belongings after death, that may not be on top of her mind because she's still alive. So I suggest backing up a little, telling her that you got a little over your skis, and asking her for permission and direction. And if she says she's not up to sorting through her things right now, accept it. It's up to you and your siblings to avoid fighting over her things. That may be easier said than done, and your mother can certainly help by creating an end-of-life plan and will, but some future fights should not be her present burden, nor should it be yours. That's always a tough thing.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have to skip that big article.
Okay.
Turning to the front page again, from Washington, 1 month from America's 250th birthday, events and celebrations to commemorate the adoption of the Declaration of Independence are as fragmented as the nation's politics and culture in 2026. President Trump's plans for a concert affiliated with the Great American State Fair in the weeks leading up to July 4th have been replaced by a campaign-style MAGA rally after most of the artists invited to perform on the National Mall opted out because of the partisan nature of the event. America 250, the bipartisan commission established by Congress to plan for the semi-quincentennial, remains the central organizer, but its efforts to get all 350 Americans to participate in various ways have been overshadowed in recent weeks by the White House sponsor of events, Freedom 250. And while the two main 250 organizations vie for attention, scores of other groups, both local and national, are planning their own activities, some of them presented as attempts to counter the Trump whitewash of the United States' first 2.5 centuries. A coalition of groups led by all of US 250 and Next 250 plan a nationwide day of mobilization on June 27th, featuring marches, rallies, cultural activations, performances, artistic installations, youth storytelling projects, teach-ins, faith gatherings, and community events to Washington and cities across the country. Locations of events can be found on the group's websites. Events also will be held the weekend of the Juneteenth federal holiday, including Reclamation Day in Brooklyn on June 20th. We're framing it as a counter-commemoration ahead of the 250th anniversary and also a movement-building opportunity, said Trevor Smith, co-founder of a group sponsoring the event, the Black Liberation Indigenous Sovereignty Collective. We push back against the kind of whitewash narrative the administration is pushing. Linda Sarsour, co-chair of Next 250, said the goal is to provide events outside today's negative politics where people can feel safe and positive about the future. I think for those of us who are working in grassroots movements right now, a lot of our people are feeling scared, Sarsour said. They're also feeling uncertain about the future, and I think what we're trying to do here is reaffirm an actual certainty that whatever's happening right now is temporary. We're on 250 years, and guess what? There's another 250 years coming, and we can shape that by doing the work that we're doing today. The America 250 Commission, the bipartisan group that has been planning for the 250th since 2016, is encouraging people from all walks of life to get involved, such as donating time or money as part of an America Gives program or simply joining one of the many celebrations that will be part of America's Block Party on July 4th. America's 250th is a once-in-a-generation moment, and it belongs to everyone, said the commission chair, former U.S. Treasurer Rosie Rios. From neighborhood block parties to national moments, we are building a shared experience that brings our country together and invites people to celebrate, connect, and give back. Events sponsored by the White House through its public-private partnership, Freedom 250, appear to be far less inclusive. In a May 30th post on his Truth Social platform, after most performers backed out of a concert organized by Freedom 250, Trump said he would instead hold an America is Back rally and give a speech on the National Mall before the 4th of July with only great patriots invited. The plans for a mixed martial arts competition on the White House lawn on June 14th, which is both Flag Day and Trump's 80th birthday, and a Grand Prix IndyCar race around the National Mall on August 22nd and 23rd have been criticized as far removed from the focus of the nation's 250th birthday celebration.
I'll say.
Mixed martial arts is not part of the 250. Oh, whatever. Freedom 250's Dedicate 250 rally on the Mall on May 17th, billed as giving thanks for God's presence in our national life throughout 250 years of American history and asking for his guidance for the next 250, was seen by some as violating the Constitution's call for separation of church and state. Democrats and other critics have raised questions about whether funds appropriated by Congress for America 250 have also been diverted to the White House group and combined with private donations that are not being disclosed. The watchdog group, Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, filed a lawsuit last month in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, seeking documents from the Interior Department on fundraising and spending by Freedom 250. America's 250th anniversary celebration is supposed to be an occasion for strengthening public trust in our democratic institutions, not eroding it, Tim Whitehouse, Peer's executive director, said when the suit was filed. In contrast, Freedom 250 is a privately managed slush fund designed to operate with no transparency, no accountability, and no guardrails. It epitomizes what is wrong with politics today. Top Democrats on two White House committees wrote Secretary of State Marco Rubio on May 27th asking about reports that some U.S. ambassadors are soliciting donations from foreign companies to help fund Freedom 250 activities. The degree to which State Department personnel, resources, and the prestige of official diplomatic positions have been mobilized in service of a politically motivated and partisan fundraising enterprise demands transparency, said Representative Jared Huffman, a Democrat from California, ranking member of the National Resources Committee, and Representative Gregory Meeks, a Democrat from New York, ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. An attorney for Peer and a spokesperson for Huffman both said Tuesday that neither has received responses to the lawsuit or the letter.
Oh, my goodness.
Indeed.
Makes you just want to stay home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, new guidance affirms Tylenol safety during pregnancy. This is from Sophia Resnick. The Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine published new clinical guidance this week affirming that acetaminophen, better known by its brand name Tylenol, should be the first in-line defense against pain and fever during pregnancy. The directive contradicts the Trump administration's notice to physicians last year cautioning against the use of the primary pain reliever recommended for pregnant women following the president's unsupported claims that the medication could lead to autism in children. The National Professional Association for Maternal Fetal Medicine Specialists, clinicians, and scientists continued to recommend acetaminophen as a first-line medication to treat pain and fever during pregnancy. The federal government's statements prompted the organization to review its 2017 guidance finding acetaminophen safe to use during pregnancy. Although some studies have reported associations between maternal acetaminophen use and adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes in offspring, methodical limitations preclude conclusions about causality and biological mechanism for such an effect remains unestablished. Reads a statement following a comprehensive review of recent and historical scientific literature. The organization's guidance cautions patients to use a lowest effective dose of acetaminophen for the shortest duration necessary, while emphasizing that untreated maternal fever carries well-documented risks to the fetus, including, or especially in the first trimester. At the news conference last September, President Trump said his administration had found acetaminophen use during pregnancy to be likely contributing environmental cause of autism. A study in The Lancet published in March found that emergency department orders for acetaminophen for pregnancy patients fell 10% in the months following Trump's statement, while there was no change in the acetaminophen orders for comparable women who were not pregnant. So,
The advice to take painkillers in the least effective dose and for the shortest period of time necessary, that ought to be automatic whether you're pregnant or whatever.
yeah, for any condition.
Whatever.
Well,
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News, where today, Friday, June 5th, we read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. And we like to sign off with a cartoon or two. Today there's some charmers. Zits. Jeremy, why do you lie on the roof at night? Relaxation, mostly. This is his mom asking him. You should try it. And then he's looking down. Ugh! Just not in silk pajamas. Okay.
yeah, you think?
And then in High and Lois, mom's telling her son, if you're going to the beach, you need to put on sunscreen. No way, he says. I'll have Gina do that at the beach. Boy. Well, your readers today have been
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. If you need any more information, give us a call at 716-821-5555. Thanks for listening today.
Welcome summer with your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're planning a summer bash bigger and better than ever before. It's Friday, June 26th at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove, located at the corner of Union Road and William Street in Cheektowaga. You're invited to enjoy a buffet chicken and pasta dinner, your first drink on us, a basket raffle, and Buffalo Music Hall of Fame party band The Boys of Summer from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are $50 and support the 160 volunteers who read all the programming offered by Radio Reading. That's Friday, June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove in Cheektowaga. Get your tickets now by calling 716-821-5555 extension 3 or online at nfradioreading.org. Thank you to New Era Kep Foundation, Tyverin Law, and Perry's Ice Cream for sponsoring this largest event of the year.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.